my name is Shalon, and I'm here to help you find your next favorite book and your next favorite author. And I'm here with Regina Black, who is an author who crafts soul-stirring romances between complicated people that are filled with angst and yearning and earn happily ever afters that you won't want to put down. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, what would folks be surprised to learn about your author origin story?
Probably that I started writing in fan fiction.
Oh, okay.
I know that's common, but I don't think many
Yeah.
people know that about me. Well, I've been writing most of my life. I started writing in third grade, but I really started writing longer stories and experimenting online, like posting online. Different fandoms, like small ones, not the big ones.
Any that we would know?
Like
Small
Grey's
thing?
Anatomy.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
I like
well, that's
soap
a big
operas.
fan. That's a big fandom.
It's a big show. It wasn't
Yeah.
a big fandom
Okay.
online.
Okay.
And, you know, anything that was soapy, I used to write stories for Black characters of color that didn't have apartments. Like, we didn't see where they lived. And so I would fill in the gaps because they didn't have a backstory, didn't have family. And I would just post those. And that is where I feel like I learned voice. So because you watch the show and you try to mimic the voice and the storytelling voice of the TV show. And so I just learned a ton posting online. And then I started posting original stories and original writing online. And that's basically was my kind of personal MFA.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. And were you drawn to those shows because you also were like a fan of the shows and then wanted to just expand the characters that sometimes are accessories on those shows?
That's exactly it. You know, I grew up during a time where there weren't a lot of stories about us on television. There weren't a lot of romance books with us on the cover. And so I was constantly watching shows that were predominantly white characters, but then there would be this Black best friend or something, and they were just kind of there as, like, you know, orbiting the rest of the cast. And so I would take that character and write a story for them and post that online. And even now with my books, I feel like I never stopped doing that. So I like to write about Black characters and kind of put them in a situation, maybe a larger than life situation, but then bring it down to make it very human and very specific to this person, which is the type of storytelling I feel like I was looking for all those years.
Yeah, because in both The Art of Scandal and August Lane, the background situations with the characters is sort of epic because it's like, how do you get into these situations? How do you get into these situations? But you definitely spent a lot of time allowing the reader to like really understand who these are as people, especially as like very human, flawed people as well.
Yes.
What draws you to crafting those types of stories?
Those are the stories that move me. You know, I always tell people I think of myself as a reader before I think of myself as a writer. I'm always going to be reading books. I love stories. I love storytelling. And the reading experiences that really stick with me are the ones that are about characters that kind of hook into you. And they frustrate you, they make you laugh, they make you cry, but they really make you feel something. And I really think those feelings come from a place of the humanity of those characters. And humanity is messy. Like, people are messy. People don't always do the right thing. And when you see someone kind of fumbling or failing in a way that you fumbled or failed, when they are able to find a way out of it to joy and that happy ending, it is inspiring in a way that I think is kind of unmatched in any other kind of story reading experience.
Yeah, I always try to say like, oh, I'll read something a little bit more lighthearted, but I love an emotionally devastating read. You feel it all the way through, like the growth of the characters and like what decisions they're going to make. It's just something about it. It just resonates differently.
And romance is the best place to devastate someone emotionally because we know we're going to be taken care of. Like, we're not going to be, beat up and just left on the ground. The end. Deal with it.
Right.
It's a reading experience where it's safer to experience those super lows, low lows and cry and be angry because in the end, all of that will be worth it because you're going to end up in a good place. So that's why I love writing romance. So.
Yeah, and because you have like that guaranteed happily ever after, you like to put us through a lot in your books, and like one thing that I found like really interesting about both The Artist Scandal and August Lane is like if we look at August and Rachel as just like women who are like faced with these situations, they're trying to make these decisions, and they don't always act in the way that we would expect them to do. Like if I was in one of their shoes, maybe I would say, actually, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
What are some things that you think of as you're like crafting women in particular? Like how do you want them to move within like your storytelling universe?
Yeah. So when I am coming up with a story, one of the things, my approaches to writing romances in general is that romance starts with self-love. And so I'm usually creating a Black woman who at some point made a mistake or something happened or, took a wrong turn somewhere and lost that sense of love for herself in some way. Or there's certain aspects of who she is that she's ashamed of. And the way they navigate life is based on this flawed understanding of themselves and the way the world works and how they're perceived by the world. And so that's where a lot of their mistakes come from. Like if they had more self-love or they had a clearer view of the world and their place in it, they probably would make better decisions. And both Rachel and August are making decisions from this flawed place of, in Rachel's case, I did this horrible thing and now I constantly have to make up for it. Or in August's case, I'm not supposed to be here, so now I have to make up for it. And the average person is not navigating life that way. So a lot of times when you read, the main women in my book, they may seem frustrating when you're reading it. But they're looking at the world in a way that's very specific to them and that kind of baggage that they're carrying with them. And the love story is their pathway. It's kind of the way for them to actually see things more clearly, see themselves more clearly through the eyes of this person who loves them, and also just kind of understand the world in a different way. And that is how they get to that happy ending. So,
yeah, and I think just thinking of that approach, I think that resonates with just like anyone who's like thinking about how they act and how they operate. Like while we're not in a situation where we're finding our husband is cheating on us by getting a text or someone stole a song from us, the baggage that we have from our past is like what we're bringing into the present and like how we're operating.
I think everybody wants to think when they're in one of those situations that you would make the right decision, but there's just no way to know until you're in that situation. Like we all want to think that we're not going to get, no one's going to scam us. We're never going to, we're going to make the right decision.
Right.
If we're stuck in a cave somewhere, we're going to make it out because we're not going to do the stupid thing. Like we always want to think those things. And if we're in this situation where a husband that you've been with for over 10 years and you've built this entire life around looks at you and is like, I found someone else and, I no longer love you, that you're going to be, I don't know, like a superhero about it. And so I don't know.
Yes.
And you just want to think you would handle it better. But in reality, no one's really prepared. Life comes at you fast. And so no one's really prepared for those moments. And so it was interesting in Rachel's situation, just kind of thinking through who this woman is and what she's bringing into this situation where this man is kind of tossing her aside, and how she responds to that. And I mean, she responded by kind of like she started swinging.
Okay, right. Exactly. Yeah, and then in the midst of these complicated women that are working through what life has handed to them, you also have these supporting characters that they bounce off of as well to provide opportunities to see, like, are they potentially going to grow? Are they going to continue to do what they've been doing? Can you talk a little bit about like how you craft like your cast of characters and how they interact?
So every supporting character is the main character in their head. And that's how I approach all of the supporting characters. So I want these people to feel like they exist off the page. And I want the supporting characters, when they're not in the scene, to feel like they're off living their life somewhere, not just like they just spring out of the ground as a person, like for the scene. And so that's how I develop them as individuals. But I also think of supporting characters as, so I write the book, and once I have the first draft, that's when I figure out what the book is actually about. Like, what is the story talking about? In the case of August Lane, obviously it was forgiveness. You would think I would have known that, but it took me a whole draft to go, oh.
Maybe that's a theme.
Yes. And so then when you kind of settle on, oh, this is what this book is grappling with, you start positioning supporting characters around that theme. So what is their take on forgiveness? What is their role they have to play in this conversation I'm having about forgiveness? And they typically represent some sort of different way of looking at it, of thinking who deserves it, whether it's something you deserve. And so I think when you position those supporting characters around the central concern of the story, they just feel like important and necessary to the story, and they give the story itself more depth. And so that's generally how I think of supporting characters. I think of certain settings that way. August Lane, Delta Blue absolutely was giving you a particular take on small town Black rural life and culture. But yeah, that's how I approach it.
And then, so we have these dynamic characters who behave in ways that we may not expect. But then we also have the romance element as well. How do you balance like the angst and yearning that is happening in the romance with the growth that we end up seeing with the main characters as well?
Yeah. I always feel, when I create the characters, I create them with the romance in mind. And so the growth arc of the characters is completely connected to the arc of their relationship. So as the characters grow and change, the relationship grows and change. And so one of the things I always think of is what is something each of these characters needs and that they're lacking, and how can I house what they need in that person. So there's slow realization of, oh, I've been looking at this all wrong. This thing that I was ashamed of that I did, maybe I don't need to be ashamed of it, or this thing that I think is causing me pain is actually a beautiful thing, those type of things. That's kind of housed in the other person. And so the way I try to balance all of that and also centering the romance is making the romance the vehicle for both characters' growth and change. And so I think that's why, I always say with romance, this is the hard part of romance, is, it's very easy to write a story about two people falling in love and then ending up happy. But it's difficult to convince the reader that couldn't happen with anyone, right? That it wasn't love that did it. It was love with this person that healed you. And I think that making their growth arcs intertwined with their romance is how you kind of make that argument that no, it could only be this person.
Yeah, and then especially in like August Lane, like I cannot imagine August with anybody else.
Yeah.
Or Luke with anyone else.
Yeah.
Like they have that connection, partly because of their independent past,
right,
and like what they've experienced with family, but then also their connection and how that like pulls them together too.
They make each other better, and I know that that's kind of a cliche, but it's also very true. It's something that I always try to keep in mind when I'm writing a book. On page, when they are apart, they are the worst versions of themselves. And when they're together, they are the best versions of themselves. And I think that is true for Nathan and Rachel, and I think that's true for August and Luke, and it will be true of my next couple. So I think with Rachel and Nathan, it was interesting because I'm not the biggest fan of age gap stories. And it was interesting writing that because I really wanted it to feel like a true age gap, but I also wanted to write the type of relationship that actually you understood. Like, I get why these people are drawn to each other. And they kind of embodied what each one needed. Like, Nathan needed this woman who was older and more mature that had gone through these things to kind of pull him through that journey from young adulthood, new adulthood, into a more adult phase of his life. And she needed to be reminded of who she used to be before all of this, and that being with this younger man who loved this art that she was passionate about was the way that happened. So
yeah. And while there was an age gap, like while reading it, there were moments where I forgot until it like came back up because of the outside world, the noise and things like that, because they did feel like the match.
But that's how it happens, right? In real life, if you're with someone and there are these big differences between you, whether it's age, race, socioeconomic background, when you love them, it disappears. But then it's always going to come up in these weird places. So that's one of the things I tried to capture with that relationship.
Yeah, that one was fun. I read that one recently, and it's something about the way that you use language. I'm always finding myself just like highlighting turns of phrase because I just love, like, I'm like, I have access to the same language. I do not put words together in this way. So I just love it. It's like, it almost like where it makes you like hold your breath sometimes, especially when like the tension of the story is like really getting up there. So
thank you. Yeah, that makes me feel so good.
Yes,
because writing is so hard.
I can imagine. I do not write, so I can't even imagine what it is, especially if you have like an idea, or I don't know if you're someone who has characters that talk to you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And you're trying to like convey that on the page and everything.
Yeah. I mean, I think loving reading is a start. I know, different authors have different takes on whether they read while they're writing. I read constantly while I'm writing because I collect words. I collect phrases. I collect ways of seeing. And that is in books, it is in film, it's in music. And I just kind of use all of that to think of different ways to describe things that are just, things that we look at and we experience every day. And I do think it just comes from a place of just really loving words and loving language and loving books. I really, really, really love books. And so, like when I sit down to write, I'm constantly trying to think of, the best, most clear way to describe like a feeling, which is one of the hardest things to do, other than saying she was sad.
But sad, it could be sad, it could be melancholy, it could be distraught, like it's different ways that it comes across.
Yeah, and I read somewhere once the worst way to make a reader experience the feeling is just to put the feeling on the page. If you want a reader to be sad, the worst way to do that is say, this was sad. And you're not going to feel that, right? And so the challenge becomes like, how do I create a situation or depict something or describe something in a way that pulls something out of you as a reader? And I mean, it's one of my favorite parts of writing. So.
Yeah. What you're doing is working. I always feel a lot of things when I am reading your work, which I really appreciate.
Thank you.
If we look at your characters again, let's imagine a world where Rachel and August know each other. So for some reason they've crossed paths, they know each other. What do you think they could learn from each other?
Oh, goodness. I think Rachel would be very clear-eyed about her art and the value of art in her life. And I think she would look at August and the fact that August kind of just put it down and be like, girl, pick that up. Like, no, this is vital. This is like who you are. This is your blood. Like you need that in your life in some way. I think I'm thinking of, Rachel at the end of her arc, not necessarily at the beginning, because, that was a lesson that she learned. And I think August, I don't know. I think August would look at Rachel and just be very impressed. And because, one of Rachel's things is that, at the end of her arc, she has this very kind of, I'm going to live my life and just not care what anyone thinks. And, people, I can imagine, after that story ends, you can imagine people going, well, are you two going to get married? Like, what happens next? And Rachel's happy ending is, I don't have to think about that anymore. I don't have to think about whether I'm going to marry this guy. I don't have to care what anyone thinks of our relationship. And that's her happy ending. And I feel like August would look at that and admire it and be like, wow, that's the goal. Even though Luke would disagree. Yeah, no,
right?
She'll be my wife.
Absolutely not. We've had all of this time apart, and we need to make this official now.
Yeah.
Yes,
he wants the babies and the ring and all of that.
Yes. One thing I wanted to touch on as well is in both of the books, there is also messages about family and connections to family and like how that's also complicated. Why is that something you gravitate to including?
Yeah, I mean, family is a huge part of my life. I have a decent sized family, and so I have lots of brothers and sisters. I'm an identical twin, so like my twin was my best friend. She still is, and so it's just a big part of my life. I also think I'm drawn to it because of the stakes. When you're writing contemporary romance, a lot of times stakes are difficult to put in contemporary because it is so grounded in real life. And, when it's fantasy, you can say, oh, the world's going to end if you don't accomplish your goal. And when it's contemporary, it's kind of like, if you don't get that promotion, who cares? Like, I don't care. Like, that seems like a you problem. And so when you bring family into a situation, everything feels more urgent because it's your sister or because it's your mother, particularly when it's an antagonist, right? An antagonist that's not related to you. In the back of your mind, you might be like, well, just don't speak to that person.
Or quit.
Or
if
quit.
It's your
if
boss
the job
or
is so
something.
bad, it's your boss. Just quit. Get another job. But you can't quit your mom, because that's your mom. And so every time I sit down to write, I always go, let me get this person some friends. And then ultimately I'll be writing the friend and I go, what if it was his cousin though? And and that just feels like even more rich and fraught because I love friction, I love conflict. And so, when I was writing August, Mavis originally was a friend from high school. And the more I kind of worked on that book, the more I realized I really wanted that family tie, that small town cousins that you're kind of forced to be friends with because everyone.
Who else are you going to be friends with?
Who else are you going to be friends with? Your family just throws you in a room to like play, and it's like I don't even like this person. So, I think that's why I'm constantly drawn to just writing about complicated family dynamics because it just feels so urgent to me from a story perspective.
And you mentioned you just finished a draft on something new.
Yeah,
Congratulations on
Thank
that.
You. I told someone, I was like, that book dragged me across the finish line.
Oh, no.
But I wrote the end.
That's good.
Yes.
That's good. Is there anything you could share about what to expect?
Oh, yeah. So it's The King of Scandal, and it is the follow-up to The Art of Scandal. So you can pick it up, read it by itself. You'll be fine if you haven't read The Art of Scandal, but it's set in the same world, and it is about Nathan's brother, Joe, and this is after the events of The Art of Scandal, which, I don't want to give spoilers.
Right. You have to read the book, and then you'll see.
But, Joe is about to take over their family business, and then his cousin basically walks in and is like, no, you're going to have competition to take over the family business, which is something he wasn't anticipating because he's been groomed his entire life to take the business over. And things happen, and the things that happen throw him back into the path of his ex-fiancée, Mia. And the major reason is because she receives an unexpected inheritance from his father, that she has inherited a stake in their family company.
Interesting.
And they have not been in each other's orbit for like a decade, kind of, but not. And so that is the messy kind of setup for them being kind of forced back in each other's world. And there is a whole lot of angst and unresolved feelings and heartache that they have to work through. So
well, I wouldn't expect anything else from
one
of your books.
I've got to be me. Yeah.
And you do get glimpses of Joe and Mia in The Art of Scandal.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to see what it looks like when it's their story with this complication, especially with the father leaving her an inheritance.
Yeah, and
very interested to see how and why that occurs.
So that's a part of the mystery, like why that happened. And it's been interesting. Joe is definitely different from the other men that I've written in my books. He's a different kind of hero for me. But it's also, it's me. So it's going to be angsty. It's a second chance, and I love a flashback. So I'm sorry for y'all that don't like them. I love them. It's going to be some flashbacks. There's also a historical mystery in this one. And I've had fun with that. So you're going to get like the history of the town and things. So yeah, it feels kind of sprawling and epic.
Yeah, and this was the like Black founded town that's like Potomac, Maryland area-ish.
Yeah, and so you're going to get kind of the history of how that area came to be and the origins of the fighting between Mia's family and Joe's family. You're going to get all of that in this book.
Oh, so, I'm excited. Yeah. I'm excited for that one.
Thank you.
If you were thinking about your work holistically and you heard a reader raving about your work, what 3 words would you want to hear them say?
Oh, man, that's a hard question. I couldn't stop reading it. I couldn't stop reading. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the books that always stick with me are the ones that I just keep being coming back to, and just kept me, like, every time when I put the book down, I was thinking about the book, and I just want to pick it back up. That's the classic reading experience you always want. And so every single time someone says, I couldn't stop reading this, I'm like, I know that feeling, and it just makes me so happy that I wrote something that did that for somebody else. So.
Yes, definitely. It's hard to put yours down because I need to see what's going to happen next. Definitely. Can you share a recommendation of a book that meets that criteria for you by a Black author?
Oh, so I am a Nikki Payne evangelist. So I always tell people, read Nikki Payne. She is a cultural anthropologist, and you can see it. She has this wonderful body of work where she is just really exploring culture and humanity, and it's specific and it's hilarious, and I just get so excited whenever she comes up with a different story, a new book. She's got another one coming out, The Pro and the Con.
Yes,
I read it. It's so great.
Of course you read it.
I read it. It's so
definitely
good.
Excited. I love The Princess and the PI.
Yes,
It's so good.
Yes, and everything she does is so creative and so fun. So she's definitely someone that I always think of. I mean, obviously, Kennedy, Ryan, and Tia Williams, like every time they come out with something, it's just like it feels like an event. It feels like a gift that you're getting every single time they have a book. I also, everyone is discovering Tara Shelton Harris right now.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I feel arrogant because we have been friends for years.
Oh my.
And like just seeing everyone go crazy over her latest release, I'm like, yes, she is.
Absolutely loved it. I could think about Lee. I'm thinking about Lee right now. You mentioned it from Where the Wildflowers Grow. Yes, definitely.
Yes. So those are some people that I always think of. So, yep.
Well, thank you so much for joining me
you.
today.
This was
I
great.
appreciate chatting with you. And so excited for The King of Scandal, whenever that is ready and when it's released.
Yes. I can't wait for it to be ready.
Yes. Well, thank you so much.